Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar, and I'm very happy to say that in this video it's going to be my why play Winterleaf Glade. So the Winterleaf Glade is a sub-allegiance for the Sylvaneth. So now that I've completed, for the moment at least, all my why play videos for the main allegiances out there, I don't know, Sylvaneth, Stormcast, Seraphon, Gloomspite Gitz, etc. Now I've moved on to the sub-allegiances. In the last video we did Blisterskin, and this is the second sub-allegiance why play, which, like I mentioned, is going to be for the Winterleaf Glade, which is the sub-allegiance for a Sylvaneth army. So what is the point of a why play video if you haven't seen one before? Essentially what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go over this allegiance or sub-allegiance. In this case, like I said, it's a sub-allegiance. We're going to go over their lore. We're then going to look at the strengths and weaknesses of the army, and that's going to be on the tabletop but also off the tabletop. So that'll be things like collecting, building and painting the army. So by the end of the video you'll have an idea if this is an army you would actually want to do yourself, or maybe it's an army that you think, I wanted to do it but now I know a little bit more about it, I'd rather do something else, which is absolutely fine. And the other thing is, maybe you already have some Sylvaneth models and you've been wondering like, oh, I want to get around to building and painting them but I just don't really have that motivation. Hopefully this video, by talking in depth one of the sub-allegiances for the army, will make you go, actually, you know what, I want to start building those models again, so I can start getting them built and painted for, at the moment at least, ready for when we can actually start playing games again. And just a bit of a side note, I'm actually really excited that this one is about the Sylvaneth, as I feel like there's not really enough content out there for them at all, so I'm more than happy to do some more stuff for them, because the why play video I actually did for the Sylvaneth, I believe is the best why play video I've got at the moment in terms of how many views it's got, which is interesting because it's viewed as not the most popular army, so it's good to see that's a very big keen interest to hear my thoughts on how I would personally play it and how I think you can get the most out of it. And hopefully I'll do the same here, talking about the Winterleaf Glade. So before we get straight into the video, I do of course want to do a massive shout out to my Patreon. So this is going to be my Morghast, which is Sandback and Jonathan H. Guys of that too, absolutely smashing it. Thank you so much for your continued support. My Vampires, of course, which is Mir, Martin S, Rouse321, Max T and David A. Guys, all the support in that tier as well, absolutely fantastic, thank you. And of course, not forgetting my Necromancers, which is Jack L, Radiation Riley, AW77, Dice Sagas, Wolf Nick, Flick, Michael W and Quad. Guys, that continued support there as well really goes towards making the channel keep on going. As I always say, if it wasn't for my Patrons, I wouldn't be able to make videos such as this. So if you're watching this video and you're enjoying it, make sure you thank these guys as they make it all possible. Okay, so first things first, looking at the lore. So obviously this is a Sylvaneth sub-allegiance, and what I will say is the same I said in my Fleshy Court video. Go look at a lore video I've done for my Fleshy Court, or in this case obviously go look at like the why play Sylvaneth video I've currently got out on the channel, which gives you an overall summary of the lore for the Sylvaneth, as it would really be no point me just repeating myself here because we really want to just get on with the Winterleaf. And starting off with their history. So they were once known as the Springleaf during the Age of Myth, and were even one of the most vibrant glades filled with life magic, having enclaves scattered all across Ghyran, the realm of life. Their capital, Dapplelauren, was the largest and fairest of all the Sylvaneth, and was ruled over by their leader, the Burrow Mother. They even had their own Wonder of the Mortal Realms, which, funny enough, was a Hanging Gardens of Shimmervale. So I imagine it's similar to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, but in this case, basically, it's, if you imagine, like, obviously, Hanging Gardens, but within the gardens, it's so vibrant of life. There's almost like a waterfall coming down from each one that is filled with, instead of it being like water, it's like life magic water that pulled forth from each of these hanging gardens into a huge overall, very green and very nice looking pool that almost described it as when the water full of life magic came down into the pool, it was like rainbows, and you had sprites who would play in it. So the sprites, what we know today, is very sort of like, not evil, but very, how do we say it, aggressive, sort of conniving, and even sometimes sinister and obviously spiteful creatures were having a wonderful time playing in magical water of life-filled rainbows. So that is Age of Myth lore for you, and generally that sums it up. But anyway, so it was a fantastic, kingdom. Almost the other Sylvaneth were sort of like wowed by the Springleaf, in awe of its beauty and its vibrance of life. But obviously, naturally, a little bit of jealousy just because of how good it was. Which seems a little bit weird because they're now called the Winterleaf. But like we say, going through the history, we'll get to that. So, however, the greatness of the Springleaf would not last. As in the Age of Chaos, during the War of Life, Nurgle sought to and succeeded in corrupting the Springleaf enclaves scattered across all of Ghyran, turning what was once fairness into foulness, and even the Burrow Mother herself was now captured and received the worst torture of all by being rooted into the Garden of Nurgle, which I can really assure you is a fate worse than death. Now with their mothery leader gone, the forces of the Springleaf that survived the Battle of Dapple Lauren, which was a mere quarter of their original population, retreated to the frozen forests of Rheinwald, where the King of Rheinwald rallied all warriors of his forest kingdom to unite with the forces of the Springleaf to finally put an end to the Nurgle corruption. However, they failed and were defeated. What was left of the Springleaf Sylvaneth had retreated to the most frozen and barren wastelands of the mortal realms to escape Nurgle best they could. Over time, the Springleaf were no more and became what is now known as the Winterleaf. Now more embittered than any other glade, with no mercy or compassion for any life, and even view themselves as already dead, their foliage pale to match their grim view of the mortal realms, with only their ruins and sigils within their bodies blazing with a furious green that is the manifestation of the only emotion they have, being hatred for the Stormcast, Eternals and Sigma and actually no, sorry, that's mine, I mean Nurgle and Chaos and blah 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 backstory. Anyway, moving on to their rules. And what I want to say at this moment in time is my favourite sub-allegiance for the Sylvaneth, as their lore's pretty cool, right? Because it's one of the defining pinnacles of where you can point out that Sylvaneth are quite different to the normal talking trees of Disney and everything like that, because the Sylvaneth really will do horrible things to members who come into their glades unwelcomed. It's something I said in, I think, the Why Play Sylvaneth video. I said, basically, they say, get off my lawn, in a very horrible way of planting seeds into the enemy and growing them into the ground and doing lots of horrible ways for them to die slowly. And then someone put a comment on that video and said, no, it's not get off my lawn, it's they are the lawn. And very much like this, but it shows how they are not as pure good. It's very grey, and obviously they have a tragic backstory that shows that, they used to be called the Springleaf and now the Winterleaf, which I think was cool. And I wanted to make the lore of them more about the history of what made them the Winterleaf than just basically banging on about how they don't really care for anyone and they've got very teenager characteristics. But going on to their rules, and this is the main reason of why it's my favourite sub-allegiance for the Sylvaneth, is because I think it has the most play. Because the first thing to say about the Sylvaneth is the overall feelings for them, from what I've seen from many content creators and people on a competitive level and everything else, which obviously fine, people have their own opinions and, they can be more knowledgeable than I am, but it's almost saying that Sylvaneth are crap, they can't fight their way out of paper bag, they can't win their games at all, don't even bother looking at them, just choose an army that is on top of the meta, which to be honest, I don't think is the main reason why people get into Warhammer. So if you like the models, I think it's nice if you have someone who talks honestly, but positively about them. So, going on with the Winterleaf rules. So like I say, it's a sub-allegiance. So it's just standard, you know, it makes you take a certain command trait and it makes you take your first artifact has to be the one here. But the first thing you're going to get in this sub-allegiance is going to be the abilities. Now I will have this on the screen as well, but just in case you can't read it, of course, I will be reading it out. So the first ability, which is Winter's Bite. So Winterleaf Sylvaneth are a heartless as their desolated homeland, and vent their malice upon all who cross them. So, the actual rules is if you have an unmodified hit roll for an attack made with a melee weapon by a friendly Winterleaf unit is a 6, that attack inflicts 2 hits on the target instead of 1, make a wound and save rolls for each hit. So that's essentially what we generally call exploding 6s to hits. So what it means, if you roll a 6 to hit with an attack, it turns into 2 wounds. So you can generate your attacks double, right? Which is something we see in quite a few different armies. They have a way to do it, like Slaanesh at the moment, just as a flat out way to do it. Slaanesh in Slaves of Darkness has a way to do it as well. There's some ogres that can do it. There is pretty much like most things have a way to be able to do this, but not saying that it's mundane. It's generally really, really good. And the reason why I think it's particularly good in Sylvaneth is most of your things that are attacking have more than one attack. Dryads, 2 attacks. Tree Revenants, 2 attacks. Spike Revenants have 3 attacks each. And then you have obviously your Kurnoth Hunters, which if you go with the size, it's 3 attacks each. But if you go with the swords, it's 4 attacks each. You know, it just gives you, what I'm trying to say here, is the more attacks you have, the more chance you have of getting those 6s to hit. Obviously, that's just simple maths, which means there's more chance of generating this ability, which gives you those extra wing rolls and making the most of it. And the fact that your Sylvaneth generally have that inbuilt on their war scrolls anyway is just really quite nice. Obviously, this is for melee weapons made by your friendly Winterleaf units. And what that means is that your Kurnoth Hunters with bows or any other shooting attack in this army won't benefit from this, as it has to be a melee weapon. Also remember that when it says keyword Winterleaf, is that when you pick the Winterleaf for your sub-allegiance in your army, everything that can be in a Winterleaf sub-allegiance gains the Winterleaf keyword. So this means things that don't already have a Glade keyword, which I'm not too sure there anything is else out there like that, or things that are like allied in and stuff like that. So pretty much your whole army will be getting the Winterleaf, if not all of it. So it will all benefit from that. So I think that's really, really good and really, really strong. When I've actually had it used against me is on a video on the channel actually. Very recently I did a 2,000 point tournament on my Discord, which I streamed onto the channel. You can go check that out. But in the second game, in the second half of that game roughly, I had 3 Varangard charge a Tree Lord. And most people on the internet has kind of referred to the Tree Lord as a bit of a joke because it doesn't really know what it fits in. It looks like it can do a bit of damage, but it never really does. And it just doesn't really work well. That's the overall feelings I got from the internet. So when I charged it with 3 Varangard, I was like, the Varangard are fine. They can just be next to it. Archaon is going to attack. The Varangard aren't going to die. He'll probably take any casualty. They're fine, you know. Attacked with Archaon, right? And then my opponent attacked with his Tree Lord into my 3 Varangard. And because he was Winterleaf, he rolled 3 6s to hit with his D6 damage weapon, which then meant that turned into 6 wound rolls with a D6 damage. He managed to wound with all of them, and then I managed to fail, I believe, all of them, maybe save 1. No, I think I failed all of them because I think I didn't get any 4s to save that. So that meant that I took 6d6 damage from a unit in a Sylvaneth army that was referred to as a bit of a joke. So there you go. That's how useful it can be. And it just cleared out my Varangard. I think it did something like 22 damage to my Varangard. Just like that. And I was sort of shocked. I was almost, if you watch that video, you can probably tell my face, I was kind of just shocked for about 15 minutes, just going, I really didn't expect that. I don't really know what to do now. So it showed how good it was on a unit that you might not even think about taking the most advantage of it. Kurnoth Hunters with swords, you can maximise that more as it's 4 attacks obviously of each of their swords. And a unit of 3, that is, 12 attacks because the champion gets +1 to hit. Which, by the way, if someone gets +1 to hit, just so we're clear, it's not triggering this ability on a 5. Still a 6 because unmodified hit roll was 6. But I just wanted to give you guys an example of how good it can be and how much it caught me off surprise as being someone who fought against this. So the next thing to talk about is the command ability, which is Branch Blizzard. So a mass of rattling leafless branches fill the air, lashing out at the enemy. So you can use this command ability in your shooting phase. If you do so, pick one enemy unit within 12 inches of a friendly Winterleaf hero and is visible to them. Roll a number of dice equal to the number of models in that unit. For each 6 that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So what I will say here is that obviously this is a horde clearing ability. We often see this in terms of being a spell, right? Being a command ability, I like it as it's just more reliable to get off. I've talked about this with command abilities versus spells before, where I prefer a command ability that will do the same effect because yes, it costs me, effectively 50 points for that command point to do. I can, in most circumstances, guarantee doing it, right? If it's a spell, I'm probably going to get unbound by Teclis or Nagash or Lord Kroak or something like that, right? So this is just more reliable. But this being a horde clear ability, roll 1 dice for every model in the unit is good, but on a 6 it takes mortal wound. Not the best horde ability, because sometimes it's 5. If we look at the Winds of Chaos one from the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, or Manticore in the Slaves Darkness army, as I've recently reviewed, it's on a 5 up, it's a mortal wound, but for every 6, it is actually D3 mortal wounds. So you can see how it's not maybe as good, right? As that at all. But like I say, I like it that it's a command point that you're doing to use it. And I also like it that you're not having to take a certain model to get this ability, right? Because if you had to take a certain model to get this ability, I'd say probably not really worth it. But the fact that you just get this chucked in your army, great. Because I have to tell you that in these sub-allegiances, you tend to always get a command ability. But they are not always created as equal, shall we say. As we see a lot, right, in Age of Sigmar, some things aren't all equal. And that's because, like, one of the ones I'm looking at taking for the Ozrach Bone Reapers, like the Crematorians, for example, which is the Bone Reapers that blow up when they die, their command ability is you can make a enemy unit that is receiving the benefit of cover not receive that benefit of cover for when you attack with like 1 unit against it. It's something like that, which I understand against, like, maybe against Deepkin is quite good because like the cover save they get from the turtle, if it's still a cover save, you need to check that. But overall, not great, right? So this is better, and it means that it's an alright one, and it gives your army a horde clearing capability. Not the best capability, but capability nonetheless. So then moving on to My Heart is Ice, which is not a personal statement I would just like to make there. It also happens to be the name of the command trait for the Winterleaf. So this general is roused to a chilling vengeful fury by the blows of the enemy. So what does it actually do? Roll a dice each time a wound inflicted by a melee weapon is allocated to the general and not negated. On a 5+, the attacking unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So I like it that it's for each time you take a wound, because it was just like if you just generally take a wound on a 5 up, the enemy takes a mortal wound. Not great, right? I mean, compared to some command traits out there, absolutely diabolically terrible. But in terms of this, if you get attacked by a horde, let's say your general is a Spirit of Death, right? A nice big hero you're probably going to have in your Sylvaneth army anyway, and has a nice amount of wounds he can take. So he has obviously 12 wounds, which what that means is that the enemy could take, 12 mortal wounds back if you're really lucky, but realistically, if we look at it as a third of the wounds that you take, you'll do more wound back to the enemy. If it's in combat, that means you could do, it's not bad, it's 4 mortal wounds back at the enemy, so it's quite good. It's not great, right? But it's something that isn't terrible depending on who you put it on. Okay, but what we also get is something that's better than the command trait, which is the Artifact of Power, which is Frozen Kernel. So this precious nut bore witness to the ravaging of its birthplace and is waiting Lament Rouse Winterleaf Sylvaneth to a merciless frenzy. I think I read those words in the right order. correctly. But anyway, so once per battle at the start of the combat phase, you can pick one friendly Winterleaf unit wholly within 18 inches of the bearer, and after that unit has fought in that phase for the first time, if it is within 3 inches of an enemy unit, it can make a party move and attack with all of its melee weapons it is armed with for a second time. So, the first thing I want to say is there's a few things in Age of Sigmar that have similar abilities as this, and they can be really, really, really strong and overall good. I do want to say though that there are different types of this ability out there, as sometimes it could be like Feeding Frenzy from Flesh-Eater Courts, which means that when your unit has fought, it can immediately fight again for a second time. Or it could be like the Chaos Lord on Foot command ability, that means that when it's your turn to pick another unit to fight in the combat phase, you can pick this unit even if it's already fought a first time. So you've got that. You've also got like the Necromancer, Van Hale's Dance Macabre is a similar one to that. So they're the two different types. You've got Feeding Frenzy, Flesh-Eater Courts. When something fights, you can fight it straight away, which is great. That's bloody fantastic. And then you've got the second type, which, like I say, Chaos Lord, Necromancer, that sort of thing. And that's really what I think this one is, as it doesn't specify that when a unit fights, it can then fight straight away. But it also doesn't specify if you have to wait until it's your turn to select a unit to fight. So I'm going to say that it is the latter, that it's not as strong as Feeding Frenzy, where someone can just fight again twice. Again, if you guys have got a really good experience with Winterleaf and you're watching this video, or just experienced the Sylvaneth and used this before, and you have a better understanding of it than I do, please always let me know in the comments if you disagree with me. But for me, I'm going to go with the safe bet and say that it's not as potent as Feeding Frenzy, where you can attack straight away. And also the other thing I want to say is you have to do once per battle at the start of the combat phase. So the other side of that is that you have to do it at the start of the combat phase. So everything needs to be wholly within range, or for whatever unit you want to put this on, has to be wholly within range of the bearer of this artifact. But the other thing is it's once per battle, which is this could be a really good artifact power every turn. Just you can do it. Be fantastic. And you could say too powerful, but I think Sylvaneth need the help at the moment, to be honest with you. So it's good, but it's once per battle. That's the problem with it. The range on it is good. It's not costing you a CP, so there's that as well, compared to quite a few of the other ones, abilities that are similar to this. So overall, I like the Frozen Kernel. I think it's Kernel, with a K and an EL at the end of it. I like it, but it's once per battle. Don't get me wrong, use it on a Spirit of Durthu, especially when he's in range with a Awakened Wildwood. Whoa, he can do a lot of damage that turn. Especially with the every time he rolls a 6, it's an additional wound roll for you to roll. So like, it pairs in really nicely with the Winterleaf main ability being the Winter's Bite, right? They haven't gone, right, this artifact is about combat power, we're going to put it in the Sub-Allegiance that doesn't really focus loads on combat. You know, it just doesn't mix well, you know, two jigsaw puzzle pieces that don't go together well. Here it does. The only problem is it's once per battle. But I'm not going to say to you guys that, oh, it's fine once per battle. You know, there's no difference. It's a huge difference. It makes it a lot worse, a hell of a lot worse than it being every turn, or at least once a battle round. But it's still good. It's still good. But especially being an artifact that you don't have a choice if you can take, makes it pretty good, I would say. And I'm happy that it's there. I like it. If I compare it to some other artifacts out there that you have to take with sub-allegiances, sometimes they can be really diabolical. So, yeah, I think it's good. I like it. So, overall, with the Winterleaf, now that we've talked about its rules and the games, let's talk about its strengths and weaknesses, right? So, strengths off the table. Obviously, it's similar to what I've already said in my Why Play Sylvaneth video. I presume if you watch this video, you've probably watched that one as well. And what I had to say is a lovely model range, a lot of new models as well, even things like the Tree Lords that are from Warhammer Fantasy and Dryads. I still think they hold up well, especially the Tree Lord kit, because the Spirit of Durthu is a really, really nice model. Obviously, Alarielle is a great centerpiece, not the best in the game at the moment, but a lovely centerpiece nonetheless. Yeah, you have some really nice stuff like your forest as well for your Awakened Warrior Woods. You'll be buying a few of those, but luckily they are really nice as well. So basically a strength off the table. Model range, also painting. It can be one of the best armies to paint in Age of Sigmar, and I'm not just saying that, it generally can be because of all the freedom you have really. Because if I think naturally what comes to me with Sylvaneth, you know, brown bark, green leaves, standard trees what are in my local area, you know, like British oak trees and all that sort of thing. That's what naturally comes to my mind. But perfect example, this is Winterleaf. You can paint them up completely different. They are very pale, how they are, lots of blues as well, lots of icy colours, and wintry colours obviously. They're incorporated them, but then like bright green in their ruins, etc. that are on them, as I said in the lore. But you can also paint things up as it's like autumn as well. You've got that. How I painted my Sylvaneth I had for a little while was white bark and like pink/purpley sort of leaves that I thought was really nice, and like blue ruins. It was really quite nice. I think you can even do things that I think would be another cool one would be like a black bark and a sort of like purple leaves as well. I think that would be a really nice contrast. It's kind of the colours of like some of the demon elements of my Slaanesh army I've been painting. I've been thinking, you know what, that'd be really cool for Sylvaneth, just randomly. But essentially it's an army you have loads of freedom how you want to paint it as well. You can say that about a lot of armies, but Sylvaneth armies, I would say, if you compared it to a Cities of Sigmar army, and you've got freedom of how you want to paint that obviously, but the difference here is that I would rather paint the Sylvaneth army because it's probably overall easier to paint. Don't get me wrong, if you want to paint this for competitions, you can do a fantastic job of it and it can look brilliant. But if you want to get it painted for the table to a good standard, you can do it in not too long. I know that like Dice Sagas, for example, has been painting up his Sylvaneth in an autumn sort of scheme, I think with white bark as well, and he's going to be doing a video on their channel as well, and it might be up by the time you've watched this video, to be fair. But definitely check that out, as it can show you how you can get really cool effects without it being too overly hard, I would say. So yeah, loads of cool models and lots of nice ways to customize them and paint them and everything like that. The other thing I would say off the table as well is that it's an army that isn't really too expensive. Now obviously it's Games Workshop, it's Warhammer, it's ridiculously expensive. But compared to things like Lumineth, what the new Mortal Slaanesh units are going to be like, I don't know what they are price-wise, but probably similar to Lumineth price. You know, it's not in that region. You have a start collecting box, everything else. So that's just generally with Sylvaneth, right? When it comes to the Winterleaf, it gives you a brilliant excuse to focus on the sort of combat elements of the Sylvaneth, which they have a lot of. Kurnoth Hunters. I generally think Tree Remnants can be very strong, but obviously Spirits of Durthu and stuff are going to benefit a lot in this as well. What I would say though, to a caveat, to a weakness of this in collecting terms, and sort of leads into the gameplay as well, is going to be it doesn't really optimize on range units. And Sylvaneth doesn't have loads of range units, especially for what we think of as kind of like the Wood Elf army. You have your Kurnoth Hunters that can be with bows, right? That's your best range unit in the army, I would say. And you also have, obviously, Drycha can do some shots and stuff as well that can be quite good. But they're not going to benefit from the Winter's Bite. So I would say that this is the sub-allegiance where if you want to go sort of heavy on range capability and shooting in your Sylvaneth, this is not the one for you. So that means that it's going to stop you building your Kurnoth Hunters with bows and all that sort of thing. Again, you can magnetize, and if you can magnetize, definitely do, as it makes life a lot easier. But if that's a kit you can't really magnetize, then you know you're going to have to pick a choice of what you want to build. And if you really want to build the shooters with the big bows, the Kurnoth Hunters, Winterleaf isn't going to work so well for you. So there's things like that to consider, I would say. Going on to on the tabletop, strengths, like I've already mentioned, it's a very good. I would say it's the most combat offensive sub-allegiance for Sylvaneth. That's my own personal opinion. Not 100% right all the time, but that's what I would say because of the Winter's Bite ability alone. It's really good. It's army-wide. You're not having to be in range of a hero or anything like that. It just works really, really well. Whereas, like, I'm not saying for Sylvaneth, but there are some, like, sub-allegiance abilities where the ability is the enemy is -1 bravery if they're within, like, 3 inches of you. Like, it just really does not compare to the Winter's Bite here. So you've got that. Like I said, weaknesses, it's not good at range. Also, Sylvaneth aren't top meta at the moment at all. If you go against a tournament winning list, you're more than likely going to lose your game. But so are a lot of other armies out there. And what I really want to stress with Sylvaneth, and when people like kick them down and everything else, is that the reason why people say bad things about them is because they rarely win any tournaments. They have a hard time against a lot of, you know, strong tournament lists. Pretty much all the time they struggle against them. But unless you're going to tournaments every weekend or something like that, most of your games aren't going to be tournament games. So you don't need to worry about it. In all honesty, and like if, let's say you're playing on your local store group and your opponent keeps on bringing an army that your Sylvaneth army just can't deal with it. It's just too much of a problem for them. Maybe say to your mate, do you mind changing up a few units and stuff? Basically stop being a dickhead. And I think that pretty much solves that problem. So guys, with that, that's actually going to come to the end of this video. So I really hope that you enjoyed it. If so, make sure to smash that like button and that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you have, make sure you hit the bell notification so you won't miss any of my future videos, especially how we'll be going over all the sub-allegiances, including the rest of the Sylvaneth ones, if that's something you're interested in. What I'd also like to say is a massive shout out to my Patreons, who again, if it wasn't for them, wouldn't be able to do this. So that's going to be my Morgar, so Sandback, Jonathan H, my Vampires, Mir, Martin S, Roush321, Max T, David A, Necromancers, Jack L, Radiation Riley, AW77, Dice Sagas, Wolf Nick, Flick, Michael W and Quad. So guys, like I say, thank you for your continued support. Really keeps the channel going. What I'd also like to say on an attachment to that is that if you're considering wanting to support the channel, please check out my link to my Patreon at the top of the description down below. Even if you just consider giving anything, even just $1 a month, guys, it honestly makes me be able to continue this and try and help out as many people getting into Age of Sigmar and improving their Age of Sigmar skills and learning the lore, of course, and everything else as possible. And what I'd also like to quickly say is that I had a sore throat during this video, so hopefully that hasn't affected the sound quality and all that sort of thing overly. Hopefully it's still been good. And overall, guys, I just hope that you've enjoyed the video and it's helped you make up the decision that if you would like to play Winterleaf or not. What I think is quite nice about the sub-allegiance videos for the Y plays is that really you probably already have this army. If you're considering what sub-allegiance I play for the army, you probably already bought the army, right? So you're already invested, you're already excited for it, and then we can just talk about different ways to run your models and make the most out of them, which I think is good fun. So guys, with that, again, thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed it. Remember until next time to stay safe, stay hygienic, wash your hands, all that sort of thing, so we can actually go back to playing games again, and make sure you wear that mask. And also, more importantly, remember until next time, that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.